Is it recording yet? Ah, there it goes. Now it's recording. Okie doke. All right, here we go. Let's watch. Everything here is good. So what did I say? The one thing that we didn't quite get to yesterday? Midpoint. So let's talk about that. I'm going to get a little bit more specific than just saying it's in the middle. Is that all right? All right, so let's write that down. Midpoint. So the word itself kind of explains what it is. It's a point that's where? In the middle, right? Now, can you have a midpoint of a line?
Yes.
Why not?
It never ends.
That's right, the line never ends. Okay, actually, I don't want to do that. I'm going to put a dot right here, a point right here. So that right there shows that it ends in both ways, okay? You're right. So a line, it really doesn't, to tell you the truth, every point on a line could be considered a midpoint if you think about it. All right, because if I start anywhere, how far is it to the left? Infinity, right. How far is it to the right? It's infinity, okay? What if I come over here and pick another point? How far is it that way? Infinite, infinite, right? Would you follow what I'm saying? So really, there is no midpoint, but every point's a midpoint. Isn't that weird? All right, but on a line, what? What is this? This is not a line. This is a line segment, okay? That does have a midpoint. So let's name it X, Y. All right? So we can measure a line segment, all right? So there is a middle. There is a halfway point on a line segment. And I'll tell you what, I'm just going to, on this program, it puts a little dot right there in the middle. So that's pretty accurate right there. Whoops. Well, it would be accurate if I would do this right. Okay, now I got to click off of it. I forgot. That's very accurate. You kidding me? That's super accurate. And I'm going to call that M. Why do you think I'm going to call it M? Okay, yeah. Or it's the what? Not the middle, the midpoint. Good. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. Remember yesterday we did that little tick mark thing? All right, I'm going to do that again today. And we're going to do that all year, to tell you the truth. I'll put a little tick mark right here. And I'm going to put a little tick mark right there. What does that mean? What does that tick mark mean? That means that, go ahead. Good. Give me the name of this line segment right here. Okay, good. XM. And then MY. So I could say that they are what? Okay, we could say congruent, but what does this mean right here if I don't put a line segment over top of it?
The length of.
The length of. Very good. Well, she stole your thunder. Should have been quicker. Oh, that's all right. Yeah. Okay. You're welcome. All right. MY. All right, good luck. Give them a smile. It's the last time you're going to see that toothy smile. It's going to be filled with metal when she comes back. Have fun. All right. Yeah, she's getting braces today. I remember. What are you guys, in 9th grade? Yeah, I was in 9th grade when I got braces.
I was in 4th.
4th grade? Oh, really? All right, so here we go. So this means that the length of line segment XM is equal to the length of line segment MY. How do I know that? Am I just guessing? Because of the tick marks, right? The tick marks tell me that those two line segments are equal to each other. So if you have this situation right here, so you have XM and then from M to Y, and if they're equal to each other, what does that tell you about M? It's the midpoint, that's right. So that, I'll just shorten it like this, PT. Is that right? So that's the midpoint right there. That's really all you need to know about it, okay? We don't really define it as saying it's in the middle, even though technically our brain thinks of it being in the middle. What does it really mean? It means the two segments, or the segment that it divides, right, where it hits, are equal to each other. Everybody see it? All right. So if I had, let's just try to draw it down here. What if I had this? And I had a point here and a point here and a point right here. So I call this A, B, and C. Okay? Is that, well, yeah, just looking at that, can you say that that's the midpoint? No. All right? Because it doesn't divide those two segments into two equal segments. All right? So how would I show that with the tick marks, that they're not the same? I'll put one tick mark here. And what would I have to put here? I don't want to put one, because if I put one tick mark here, what does that mean about the two segments? That they're equal to each other, okay? So I could put just two tick marks. You see that? So they distinguish each other from each other. If that's got one and that's got two, that automatically means what must be true or untrue about this. They are not equal to each other, right? They're different lengths. This has a one tick mark. This got two tick marks. That means they're different lengths. So can C be the midpoint? No. Now, is it between A and B, though? Yeah, it is between, all right, A and B, but it's not the midpoint. So just because it's between 2 points does not mean it's the midpoint. Okay, enough of that. That should have been yesterday, but we just ran out of time. So now we're going to do a thing. What do we call this lesson? Special angles. Okay, so let's do this. Now we measure. Well, let's talk about what an angle is. We talked about what an angle is, didn't we? Yeah, I think so. So let's just review that. Oh, why is that in red? Let's go back to white. There we go. All right, so we got that. Let's try this again. There we go. All right, we got this. And let's be real specific about it. What do we say about an angle? An angle is made up of two what? Two rays with a common endpoint. Very good. And we have a special name for that endpoint. What is the special name for that endpoint? Vertex. Very good. So you guys were listening, or at least you took notes and you're looking at your notes. Either way, that's good. All right. Now, we measure, and you probably already know this isn't probably anything new to you, but how do we measure an angle? Do we measure it like in centimeters or inches, or measure it in degrees? Very good. So I'm going to put a little arc right here. And that's how we usually show that angle, by putting a little arc that connects the two rays. Okay, we measure it with degrees, right? What if this angle went all the way around to where it started? How many degrees is that? 360. Okay, what if I went like halfway around? That would be what? That'd be 180. What if I went a quarter of the way around? That'd be 90. All right, so this is somewhere between 0 degrees and what? And 90 degrees. Would you agree? Well, it's between 0 and 360 and 0 and 180. That's true. But to be a little bit more specific, it's between 0 and 90. So if you went from there to there, I don't know, let's just guess. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't have like an online protractor. I could put it right there and see what the angle is. I guess I could download one, but I'm not going to. Just guess. What do you think that degree is right there? It almost looks like it splits it. It looks like it's almost exactly a half, doesn't it? So yeah, so let's say it does. Let's say it divides that angle into two equal angles, okay? Or it splits it in half. How many degrees would that be? Be 45 degrees, okay? That's not really one of our special angles. All I'm doing is trying to show you how we measure an angle. All right, that's all I'm doing right now. Everybody good so far? All right, so now we are going to get into our special angles. So, well, that angle right there, I'm just going to draw them all together, so I'll just draw it right here. So if you have an angle that is less than 90 degrees, we give that a special name. I'm going to make that just a little skinnier, okay? So an angle should have arrows, because an angle is made up of rays. So if it's less than 90 degrees, does that look less than 90 degrees? Yeah, absolutely. We give it a name. And I'm sure you've heard this before. We call it an acute angle. Yeah, I showed you, didn't I? How to label an angle, right? So that little symbol right there means angle. So we call this an acute angle. See how cute it is? All right. But it's an acute angle. It means it's less than 90 degrees. Technically, they would say it's between 0 and 90 degrees. But for us, I think it's just easier to say that it's less than 90 degrees. So that's our first special angle. We have another one. And, well, not yet. We will get to obtuse. But since we talked about 90 degrees, let's draw an angle that is 90 degrees. What do I want? That one. Okay. So there and there. Now, is that a 90-degree angle right there? Well, you got to be careful. Do I know for sure, 100%, that that's 90 degrees? That's right. You got to have the little box there. All right. If you have a little box right there, now I can 100% say that this is a what? 90-degree angle. Okay. You got to be careful because who knows? The angle that I drew before I stuck that box on there might have been like 89.999 degrees. Is that 90 degrees? No, it rounds to it, but it's close to it. But if it's exactly 90 degrees, you put the little box there. So what do we call that angle? A right angle. A right angle. And that, what? Equals exactly what? 90 degrees. Pretty easy so far. And I'm sure that you probably learned this back in the day, right? Whenever, I don't know when you learned this stuff, probably middle school, something like that. Maybe later in elementary school. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've been in elementary school, so I don't know when. All right, let's do another one. And somebody said it already. Yeah, obtuse. Let's see what obtuse is. So, what did we say about an acute angle? It's less than 90 degrees. What does this look like? That's right. But we're not going to say the word more. What do you think we're going to say? Greater than. Okay. So here's your angle right there. Remember, 90 degrees would have gone up that way, right? But this goes beyond 90 degrees. And so that would be more than 90 degrees or greater is what we're going to say. And we call that an obtuse angle. Obtuse. And that would be greater than, you can say more, kind of means the same thing, greater than 90 degrees. And again, technically the book will probably say it's between 90 and, what do you think? 180, right, okay? So, but as far as we're concerned, if it's bigger than 90, it's obtuse. Because technically there's some situations where that's not exactly true, but for what we're thinking, that's true. All right, let's do one more. Special angle. And then we'll talk about some other things that have to do with some of these angles. Now I'm going to put a point right there. Kind of make it fat so you can see it. Is this an angle? Looks just like a what? Looks just like a line, doesn't it? But technically it is an angle, because what do we say about an angle? An angle is made up of two what? Two rays. In fact, there are two what kind of rays? We talked about this. Opposite rays, that's right. See, one's going in this direction, one's going in another direction. Okay, it forms a straight line. So yes, this is an angle. So from here to here is an angle. How many degrees is that angle? 180, that's right. Okay, so we call this, since it makes a straight line, guess what kind of angle we're going to call it? Straight angle. That's one that you probably, I don't know if you've heard it or not. Makes sense though, doesn't it? So a straight angle is what? It's equals 180 degrees. It's exactly 180 degrees. It's not less, not more. It's exactly 180 degrees. All right, so that's pretty important. All right, good enough. So far, so good, right? Yeah. So we're going to talk about some lines now, but they got some angles in it, some of the special angles in it that we have talked about. So let's do this. What if I have a line right here, and then a line right there, and I'm going to put a little box right there. So what kind of angle did we just draw? A right angle, 90-degree angle, that's right. Okay, but I'll put some arrows on here since they're lines. Now, we have a name for those lines. We know what the angle is. We know it's a right angle, 90-degree right angle. But we have a name for those two lines. When you have two lines and they intersect each other, and they form a right angle, we have a name for that. And again, it's a name that's probably not new to you. You probably heard this word before. Isn't I? Is that what she said? Did you say perpendicular? Okay. Well, if you did, you were right. Perpendicular. What's perpendicular? The angle? No, the lines are perpendicular. So they are perpendicular lines. And let's just make this easy. Let's call that L, and let's call this one M. So if I wanted to write down that line L is perpendicular to line M, instead of writing out that whole word perpendicular, we got a little symbol for it. That happens all the time in math, or in geometry especially. And we've already seen a couple symbols, right? We had a symbol for an angle, we had a symbol for line, we had a symbol for ray. Well, here's a symbol for perpendicular. So line L is perpendicular, and that's our symbol right there. Looks like an upside down T, right? Line L is perpendicular to line M. So instead of saying all that and writing all that down, okay, well, you still say it, but instead of writing it all down, this is how we would write it. This means line L, and this means perpendicular, and this means line M. You could do it the other way too. You could say that line M is perpendicular to line L. Either way, it doesn't make any difference. So that's our little symbol for perpendicular. So that means perpendicular. Everybody good? You don't have to put a little box there or anything. You just do a little upside down capital T, and you're good to go. Yep. Okay, let's go to the next thing. Kind of went a little out of order in my notes, so that's what I was looking for. Let's do this. Let's draw just any old angle. There's an angle. Well, not yet. It will be in a second. All right, there we go. I'm not going to draw the arrows. It just takes too much time, okay? So I'm going to group it together so when I pick it up and move it around, it stays together. I'm going to copy and paste it, okay? And I'm going to twist it a little bit. I don't have to twist it, but I'm going to. Now, I copied and pasted it. So what do you think might be true about this angle and this angle? Actually, let's do this. That they're the same, exactly, okay? I'm going to do it in red. So that's kind of putting, you know how we put a tick mark when two things are equal to each other? On an angle, in order to show two angles are equal to each other, we put a little arc. So if I put one arc here and one arc there, what does that tell you about those two angles? That they're the same, okay? And we have a word for it. It's a word that we used, I think, yesterday for the first time. What do we say when two line segments have the same length? We say they're congruent to each other. So what are we going to say about these angles? They're congruent to each other. So we'll just call this angle X and call this angle Y, right? And I can call this just angle X, can't I? Because there's no other angles coming at this. We talked about that the other day, right? And there's no other angles coming out of this. So I could call this angle X. So here's what I'm going to write. I'm going to write angle X is congruent to, do you remember the congruent symbol? It's an equal sign with a what? Little squiggle on the top. All right, that means angle X is congruent to what? Angle Y. Okay? Now sometimes I get a little lazy. Technically, you're supposed to say the angles are congruent to each other, but sometimes I'll say they're equal to each other, and I'm okay. Some teachers would flip out if they heard me say that, but I'm okay if you just say that they're equal to each other. But congruent, these are called congruent angles. All right, and let's put a number in here. Let's say that's 60 degrees. And we don't really even need to know. Oh, this is not even close to 60. I should have put 30, but that's okay. It doesn't make any difference. All right, so congruent angles are going to have, or their angles are going to be equal to each other, right? The measure of the angles are going to be the same. So this is 60 degrees. That means this has to be 60 degrees. We good? Yeah. All right, I'm going to draw another picture. And so what was that whole thing right there? That was called what? Congruent angles. Congruent, and I'll just put angles. Everybody got that? That's the angle symbol, apostrophe S. It's plural. We good? All right. We're moving on. Learning all kinds of new stuff today, aren't we? Actually, learn a lot of old stuff. A lot of this stuff you probably already knew before you came in here. There's a few little things that were new. Here's something you probably had not seen before. Actually, you've seen the picture. We actually did a homework problem, I think yesterday. We went over it that kind of looked like this. Remember this from yesterday? Yeah. All right, what we're going to do is we are going to talk. Let's label it. Let's make that an N. Again, I'm being a little lazy. They should have arrows on the ends, but just don't want to take up the time to do all that. This is K. And this is P. Okay? I want you to look at this angle, and then I want you to look at this angle. Now, if I put just one arc there, what's true about those two angles? They're equal to each other, right? Now, I'll tell you the truth. It really doesn't even matter if they're equal to each other or not for what we're talking about right here, but I'll just make them different. See how you put two arcs? It's kind of like putting two tick marks, right? That just means that this angle is not equal to this one. Now, they could be, right? For what we're going to talk about here in a second, they could be equal to each other, and what we're going to talk about still works, but I don't know, I just made them different. So if you look at these angles, do you see how this angle is right next door to this angle? Yeah. So we're going to use a word that means next to. This is a word you probably have heard before, but I doubt teenagers don't usually use this word. Okay, usually when you get older, more sophisticated, and your vocabulary increases, then you start using words like this. But if Mr. Gaines is next door to me, right? He's next to me. Or I say our rooms are, give me a fancy word, starts with an A. Adjacent. Very good. See, I knew you've heard that word before. Okay, so we use the word adjacent. Here's how you spell it, if you didn't know. All right. And what does that mean? We're what to each other? We're next to each other. Okay. What about Mrs. Burns? Am I adjacent to Mrs. Burns' room? No, because she's across the hallway, down a few rooms. We are not adjacent to each other. All right. So adjacent means they're right next to each other. We share something, don't we? What does Mr. Gaines' classroom and my classroom share? That wall, not the students, okay? You can't be in both places at once unless you're straddling. That'd be hard with that big wall right there, all right? But they share a wall, okay? Well, adjacent angles share something as well. Look at this angle here. I tell you what, just to make it easier, let's call it by a number. Is that all right? I'll call it angle 1 and angle 2. That just makes it a little bit easier, so I don't have to call it MNK and KNP. It gets too confusing. So look at angles 1 and 2. They are adjacent to each other. They are adjacent angles. Okay, and why are they adjacent? Because they share what? They share a common side, or it's not a line. They share a common ray. Very good. Okay, so you could say side. It's perfectly fine because the two rays are considered the sides of the angle. Did I talk about it yesterday? I think I might have skipped that. But the two rays are called the sides of the angle. So they share a common side. Look at angle 1. It's got NK as part of that angle, doesn't it? Okay, what about this angle 2? It also has NK as part of that angle. So if they share a common side, that's one thing that makes it adjacent angles. Put adjacent angles right here. Okay, but they have to have something else too. Let's see if I didn't even write that down. Oh, there it is, yeah. But it can have no common interior points. Do you hear what I just said?
Yeah.
They cannot have any common interior points, so they can't share any interior points. So where are my interior points to angle 1? Well, they would be here, here, here. I could do this all day, couldn't I? All right. Those are the interior points of there. Are there any points that are shared by both angle 1 and angle 2? No, because that wouldn't be interior. That'd actually be on the angle itself. Okay? No. Any points in this angle are all going to be different from all the points in this angle right here, right? If I put a bunch of points, you follow me? So do they have any common interior points? No. So if they're adjacent, they have a common side and they have no common interior points. All right? If you have a situation like that, what can I say about angle 1 and 2? They are called what? Adjacent angles. All right? There's going to be a time later on, I forget exactly what chapter, I think it's quite a ways into the year, but there's going to be a thing where we talk about adjacent angles quite a bit. All right? So we're just learning what they are right now. A little bit later on, we'll talk more about adjacent angles. That's not too hard, is it? Nah. We're getting there. Oh, we're almost done, actually. When's this over? 1 what? 10? I'm going to be doing this all year. 1, 10. right when I finally got used to last year, all the times, then we switched, and I got to get used to them again. But at least I have that thing on the board, or on the wall. It tells me my times. All right, let's do this. Let's do that kind of same situation. Probably could have used that same picture. That's all right. I'll draw a picture again. All right, so there's that. Here's this. All right, kind of looks the same, doesn't it? Yeah, I'll make that about like that. All right, there we go. I'll put arrows. I won't be lazy on this one. All right. This time again, I'm going to number them. I'm going to say this angle right here is angle 1. This one right here is angle 2. And then I'm also going to look at that whole big angle right there. Everybody see that? I'm not going to put 3 arcs on there, but you can see it. I got the little one, the medium one, and the big one. And we'll call that angle 3. Everybody watching? All right. So what I want to do is I want to look at angle 1 and angle 2. If I take angle 1, that's this little bit right here, and I take angle 2 and I put them together, what do those 2 smaller angles actually make? They make angle 3, don't they? So I could say this, that angle 1, what do you think? Plus, very good, angle 2, what? Equals angle 3. Is that just because 1 plus 2 equals 3? No, it has nothing to do with that. I could have called this angle 7 and angle 24 equals angle 1, okay? It doesn't make any difference what numbers we call them, all right? But if I take this angle and put this one right next to it, it forms that whole big angle, all right? And that's called the angle, I'll just write it out, the angle addition. Now here's a word I don't think we've said yet, but we're going to see a bunch of these. It's called a postulate. Doesn't that sound fancy? It just means like a rule, R-U-L-E, rule, all right, or just something that we know. But it's something that we don't have to prove. We'll talk about proving stuff later on, but it's something that we don't have to prove. This is just something that they tell us that works. So what are they basically saying? If you have an angle adjacent to another angle, then those 2 angles form the big angle, all right? So they add up to be this angle. Make sense? Yeah, that's pretty easy. Let's do an example. We've got one more example, and then we'll be finished. Yay. Why are you so excited about? You should say, teach me more, Mr. Hammer. There you go. Even though you're lying, that's all right. Still like to hear it. All right, this picture is going to look a little different than what we've done, but it's going to have some similarities. It's using the angle addition postulate. So this is actual example. So I'll put arrows, and this is example 4 in the book. You want to look at it? And they label it A, B, C, and D. All right, and they call this angle 1, again, just to make it a little easier for us. Right, instead of always calling it angle BAC and angle DAC, right? It's just a lot easier saying angle 1 and 2. Yes? Yes. All right, here's the question. It says, where should I do it? Right, do it up here. It says find angle 2. Oh, here's one thing. I don't usually do this, but you'll see it in the book and you're like, why do they put that little thing in there? You'll see this. Put a little m and then angle 2. It is. Very good. That's the measure of angle 2. So we're actually looking for a number, okay, an actual number in degrees, all right? Because when you measure an angle, we measure in degrees, correct? You'll see in the book this little m in front of it. They're being really, really picky, but to me, it's almost a waste of time, all right? So most of the time, I probably will not put that little m there, okay? I'm not going to make you put that little m. But when you look in the book, you'll see that little m, and you're going to need to know what that means. Everybody okay with that? All right, so this just says find angle 2. Well, there's angle 2. I found it. There it is. Yay. We're done. No, we're finding the measurement of the angle. That's what they're asking for when they just say find angle 2. Okay? All right, they got it. Now, we can't We can't figure out anything just yet. Oh, and something else. And angle BAD, that bad angle, okay, if
in front of the BAD, will there still be an M?
in the book they will. They'll put the little M there, but I'm not going to do that. All right, I don't know. It's just waste of time. Again, some math teachers, geometry teachers, if they heard that, like, oh, I always put the M there, but I don't care. All right. So now I got to tell you one more thing after this as well. If angle 1 is 55 degrees, so angle 1 is 55 degrees. Now, if that's the only thing I told you, you would not be able to find angle 2 and angle BAD, right? Here's something else that they tell you. They don't actually tell you up in the instructions, but they put one arc here. I didn't draw this super accurate, but that's okay. We don't really need it accurate. And they put one arc here. What does that tell you about angle 1 and angle 2? That's right. That 1 and 2 are congruent to each other, or they're equal to each other. So they're exactly the same. All right? You with me on that? So angle 2 is super easy to find now, isn't it? So what's angle 2 going to be? That's it. So angle 2 is 55 degrees. I didn't even have to do any work for that because I know that 1 and 2 are equal because they both have one arc. All right? And they told you what angle 1 was, 55, and they asked for angle 2. Well, if they're equal, they got to be 55. Now, where's angle BAD? BAD, the whole thing. Good. Okay, that whole entire thing. So if this is 55 degrees and this is 55 degrees, it's really not much more difficult to find the whole big angle, is it? Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit, but not much. So what do I do to find the whole big angle? That's right. Do you see how they form these two adjacent angles, form that whole big angle? Remember we said about the addition angle postulate, right? That those two angles add up to be the whole thing. So technically, it's 55, what? Plus 55. So that's what angle BAD is equal to. And what is that? 110. And it's in degrees. Make sure you always put the degree symbol. All right? These are degrees. Don't just put 110. Because I don't know if that means 110 centimeters or 110 feet. All right? It's in degrees because it's an angle, and that's what it is. All right? So, and I'm going to write out angle BAD. You should do that. So angle BAD is equal to 110 degrees. I'll circle that. That's one of my answers. I'll circle that. That's the other answer. Couldn't be easier, could it? I don't know, maybe, I guess. But really, when they tell you one is 55 and the other is equal to it, then you know that's 55. That's super easy. And then you just had to look to see the whole thing. What if they told you this? What if they told you the whole thing was 110? And they told you 1 and 2 are equal and you had to find 1 and 2. That's it. You just divide it by 2. Since they're exactly the same, you just take the 110, divide it by 2, and you get both of those angles. We good? Yeah. Everybody ready to start their homework? By the way, let's write it down here. Oh, yeah. That should be a resounding yes, Mr. Hammer. I can't wait.
I cannot wait.
There you go.
I love homework so
See?
much. It just makes my day.
See? Everybody should be more like that. All right, I know. I don't like to do homework either, but it's necessary. It really is. I don't do this just for busy work. I do this so that you can learn the material. You already did 1 to 14, so don't worry about 1 to 14. Sorry. So you're doing 21 to 28. That's not that many. It's only 8 problems. And right there, that's 12 problems. So what's that? 20 problems? It's not much. Okay? So there you go. Yeah, fill out a pass. Okay, everybody got that? All right. That's it. Have fun with that.